For those of you relatively unfamiliar with the saga of Bungie and Marathon, let me paint you a little picture. But for those of you wanting a TLDR for this video, it looks like Marathon is on the verge of being announced, at the very least, that they are going to get delayed, as the money from Sony has all but dried up from a marketing standpoint. They canceled all of the paid marketing plans. But for those of you that want a little bit of background, I'll provide that here. So Marathon, a game that we've all kind of seen and played that got overshadowed by Arc Raiders in hilarious fashion, where we had a game that came out, even though it's made by Nexon, and I'm not a big fan of Nexon, but the game itself was played extremely well. It showed a lot of development ingenuity, a lot of immersive nature and stuff. It was really fun. Arc Raiders kind of took over the limelight, and then to follow up, about a week ago, we had a report from an artist saying that their art had been stolen and directly copy-pasted into Bungie, which Bungie and Marathon ultimately ended up admitting to. And then we had this hilarious, laughable moment where Joe looked like he had been hit by a bus and told that his dog just died while he did a live stream, and read off of a cue card saying that they took full responsibility and that they were going to make it right, and then sat there through the remainder of a Q&A session, only then to cancel the gameplay session that was supposed to take place a few days later, because they were worried that those assets were obviously still going to be in the build that they were going to be showing people, and they didn't want to do that to the community again. Fast forward to, I guess, about 4 or 5 days ago, Paul Tassi puts out an article showing that he had talked to a bunch of internal employees for Marathon, where the employees had their morale was basically in what he referred to as, quote, free fall, and then you ended up having them try to pass the buck, the devs try to pass the buck off to the suits at Bungie, saying that the suits at Bungie were not listening to them, saying that they needed a PvE mode and all of these other things that the devs thought that the game needed, but the suits were not going to listen to. Now, I am one that thinks that games don't need a PvE mode personally, so I disagree with that sentiment. I think that their problem lies in the lack of immersive nature, the fact that people feel as though they're kind of flying through the map, if you will, and the combat of the game just feeling relatively uninspired. The idea of a hero shooter being combined with an extraction game doesn't really seem to fit the motif, even if it is something that's set further in the future. Most extraction games rely on the feeling of suspense in order to be able to convey that that idea of the game being hardcore or adrenaline rushing. Usually, because of the fast movement when it comes to extraction games, it doesn't really pan out as well. Tarkov has this whole deal where you're trying to listen to like every single little environmental sound. Maybe you'll hear a gun rattle or like a single footstep or a little bit of motion from a healing kit or something, and that will be the only sound cue that you get. 5 whole minutes as you're listening to try and determine where someone else is in proximity to you. And you do that because the time to kill in that game is so short that it doesn't really matter if someone's turning the corner to rush somebody down or not. It's usually coming down to how much advanced knowledge you have of that situation, right? Same thing can be said for games like Arc Raiders and Gray Zone. Now, Arc gave a lot more leniency and counterplayability due to the way that the shields worked, but you still had the ability to knock someone out really fast. The same thing is true for a game like Gray Zone. Gray Zone has a very fast time to kill, and Gray Zone is pushing out its 0.3 update as I'm recording this. That game, same kind of feeling. Slower pace, feels good though. And like the milsim guys tend to be the ones that gravitate more toward the extraction genre of game. You don't typically have a lot of people on like the looter shooter Destiny side that found a new home in Marathon. Something has been feeling off, aside from the artistry, of course, which then now appears, even if it's just community sentiment, that it got stolen. Now, granted, the art style itself has been around for a while, right? I'm not talking necessarily about the art style having been ripped off, because that's been around since the 90s. 1994's Wipeout, for example, looks very similar to how Marathon looks. However, those pieces of art that were taken and other examples of this person's artwork, of her artwork, look very close to what Marathon was trying to put out. And as soon as community sentiment changes, it's very hard to change. Which brings us to the headline today. Marathon delay likely as Sony cancels all paid marketing plans. This article from the Game Post, written by Zuhad Ali, that was posted just a couple of hours ago, goes into how, because of all of this stuff that has been happening behind the poor alpha performance, through the art scandal, on through the devs trying to blame leadership for not listening, calling their leadership toxic and humiliating, to saying warnings about focusing only on PvP were being brought up early on, but were completely ignored by higher-ups. Now we have this claim that Sony is reportedly canceling all paid marketing for Marathon, and there's a belief that a delay is coming. Colin Moriarty, who, if you haven't heard, is kind of referred to as like the godfather of PlayStation podcasts. He's kind of like the guy that is known for relaying information, rumor mill information, when it comes to Sony-related stuff, in a way that we suddenly get to hear about it. And most often, he's on the money. So in this case, Colin did an episode of the Sacred Symbols Plus podcast, which was paywalled. In this podcast, he talks about, quote, it's considered a fairly unusual move for a game of this high profile. Now, Colin goes into some vague detail, but says basically he's talked with a marketing professional that's familiar with this marketing effort that's going on overseas, at least, and said that modifying the marketing budget is considered a fairly unusual move of a game of this high profile. He then goes on to, quote, I was told by someone familiar with the marketing plans in a key overseas market that there are now no plans to do paid marketing for Marathon at all. Moriarty went on then to say, I don't know if those plans were affected by what has recently happened or if that was always the plan or whatever, but it is considered a fairly unusual move for a game of this high profile. Now, for those of you that are wondering why Sony's getting involved, Sony's not just the publisher in this case, so for them to back out of the marketing dollars means a ton when they actually own Bungie. Less than 3 years ago, in July of 2022, they purchased Bungie for $3.6 billion, and this title of Marathon was supposed to be like the new IP that was going to catapult this into the future, but it didn't, and it doesn't look like it's going to. And honestly, between the art plagiarism to the mixed to negative feedback, myself included, on the closed alpha, and then, you know, all of the invites from the public and the response that it was getting, the one tried and true thing that it had to lean into was the art, and that doesn't go great. Then you have Sony that backs out from the marketing money, and yeah, I would have to agree. It looks like this September 23rd launch is probably going to get pushed. That would be my assumption. If they end up going ahead with this September 23rd launch, I don't think it's going to be floated very well, like at all. It would do them some good to pad this with a little bit more time. If they genuinely want Marathon to take off to the expectation of the brass or whatever, to the expectations of Sony, they're really going to have to delay this another 6 months, bring this thing back to the drawing board, slow the game down, give some more of an immersive feel to it, bring out some more NPCs, make the game feel like it's something that people want to get into. Give us some systems that let us, you know, do some in-depth crafting. Make us care about the world. If you don't make us care about the world, if we don't feel like we're a part of it, we're not going to play it. Anyway, guys, that's what I have for this one. Thanks so much for coming and checking it out. My name again is Onepeg. If you would be so kind as to sub the channel here, that would be amazing. Otherwise, maybe come check me out over at twitch.tv/Onepeg, where I am live around 6 to 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time just about every single day until, well, whenever. If none of those work for you, then maybe I'll see you in the next video. Thanks so much for lending me your eyeballs, everyone. We'll see you real soon. Peace.